conditioning in this studio is excellent. It's excellent.
That's the first thing you have to say.
Yes.
Okay.
I want everyone to know that we are
Mhm.
casting in the best conditions possible.
It is. It is very cool right now, and it is very warm outside. So surprisingly, and of course, there's the water. Air quality is not the best, but still, that's Korea
so
right now.
dusty right now.
Yes, but
We also have to inform the
That's-
viewers on how dusty is it right now.
oh, it's pretty dusty, and I think that's kind of what we're going to see tonight as we have first match Miracle versus Ballistix. I think a lot of people would predict how it's going to happen, and second one is Feliz versus Good Luck. But look at that standings. KSP Black dominating Ballistix last game. Oh, previously last Sunday, second match, 3-0. A lot of people were surprised, including myself, Wolf, and all the Korean commentators. How did you think of the match?
It was really interesting because Ballistix almost seemed to deliberately not draft properly, as if they were saving something for some indeterminate match in the future, because they led through Phoenix both games. Usually not a good idea, definitely not a good idea against KSV. And I don't think the 3-0 properly represents the relative strengths of both teams.
Yep, I don't think Ballistix really got to show their 100% through the draft. And as I mentioned, we have today's matchup here, Miracle versus Ballistix. First one, and Feliz versus Glug, which matters a lot more, I would say, compared to match number 1. We'll get into that very soon as we have the first best of 5 done. And basically the winner of match number 2 will not go to the Crucible.
Basically, and they will also get, that means they will also get a chance to compete for a spot to Sweden, although, you know, like, it's very unlikely that one of these two teams will make it through the HGC gauntlet all the way up to the top, but still, it's something worth thinking about.
Yeah, playoff will be tough, and Miracle as we head into match number 1 versus Ballistix. They went through the role swaps, and they are back to their original Gunza, playing lots of Genji. Failed miserably in that match, I believe, day number 1, week 9.
I'm just so happy that Miracle got over that let's make Gunza play main tank phase. That was horrible to watch.
Well, myself was very critical on the same topic, but I'm glad they are back on what they're good at, their DPS and the tank. Heroes pool seemed to be a problem, but right now they're having lots of fun with some changes. Gunza being the Junkrat, the later range DPS for the team. This team is really coming together, and with H82 not really playing that Sonya as much compared to the other solo laners. I wonder what's up in that team.
I think in general, H82 has always had a sort of wonky hero pool that was always sort of relevant in any meta, but also irrelevant in a lot of other metas. Like, he always had a very good Malthael, for instance, but never a good Dehaka. That's pretty weird. So, in general, I think he tends to perform much better on duelist heroes like Artanis, like Malthael. He really needs to have like absolute aggressive control over his lane in order to do good things in a game.
Yeah, I do agree. I fully agree. H82 has a different style, I would say. And here we have Ballistix. After losing to KSP Black last time, 3-0. Has been tough, and Rich was also saying maybe Ballistix doesn't really have the best read on what's the best hero and the team comp for the meta right now, because they really struggled during the draft, and then it really showed in-game what they were lost of what to do. Especially late game, they were always falling behind against KSP Black, but tonight they had some time to work on their mistakes from last time. And I believe we'll may see some changes. Of course, they have to be playing in that playoff because they lost to KSP Black 3-0.
I mean, if we're going back to the KSV match, I think one thing that has always been pointed out as a possible weakness of Ballistix that hadn't been exploited until then was that they so heavily relied on Hooligan picking an aggressive dive tank and doing well on that, and also on SD's Tychus. No other team utilizes Tychus so heavily, and also Jungha's picks are always super inflexible. I think that's one of the things that's really holding back Ballistix from achieving their true potential as a team, because if you look at like players like Gyocha, he's free to flex onto like Tassadar, Zeratul, whatever he wants, Ragnarus, whereas if you look at Jungha's picks, he's almost always playing either Sonya Dehaka or Leoric or Blaze. all of which are like great heroes in this meta, but don't really let him show his true playmaking potential.
Yeah, that's the thing. He has been consistent in another way. Even in Eastern Clash, I think that almost brought them the win also. But the meta is shifting. You gotta learn. You have to move along with the flow and the patch. Guys, we are on 31.3. That's the Phoenix balanced patch, which AKA Nova's not broken anymore patch. And so we'll get through it, as Hanzo's still banned after some changes to him.
I'm actually really happy that Ballistix made the decision to ban Garrosh first, because that's the crux of Miracle's entire game. Miracle's the entire host of their successes in this season has been centered around Garrosh and Hanzo. These two heroes are what make Miracle work as a team. And Miracle sort of self-banned Hanzo, perhaps a differential nod to SC's Hanzo, perhaps, but I don't think they should have done that, and Garrosh got banned away as well. So now Miracle are stuck playing Genji, which they never were that impressive with.
Yep, and their Genji was not that impressive, I would say, but Hanzo's still on SC's hands. Even with the nerfs onto his trade, also Scatter Arrow at 4, going down from 150 to 100%. Which has been somewhat effective, I would say. When I played Hanzo, I actually ran out of mana for the first time. So, I would say the nerfs were right on point.
It was one of the most reasonable nerfs we've seen, like, in any patch note. They were never supposed to deal that much damage to, you know, minions and monsters.
And it's a lot tougher to just solo camp now as Hanzo, but still against SC, the damage stays the same. So I think that's where we're headed, as Hanzo could be a pretty good to damage from far away.
Also, Hanzo's Dragon Strike got buffed, if I'm remembering this correctly, and SC has the best Dragon Strikes in Korea. So
yes, so far
relevant.
I do remember on the Dragon Shire also, but Miracle really focusing onto ETC because Garrosh was banned, was kind of thinking maybe ETC will be banned right after, so it's picking that ETC along with Sonya. I think they got a pretty good lineup, but as long as that Genji is consistent from Miracle, I can trust this draft so far.
Overall, the drafts on both teams look to be pretty standard. Miracle is not venturing into any heroes that they were previously never seen before playing. Ballistix always with their Tyrael pick early on in the draft. You know, something that I worry about Ballistix is that their reluctance to play Garrosh and their fixation on picking Tyrael in so many games for Hooligan. Obviously, against weaker teams, it'll work every time because they're simply just the better overall package. But against the top tier teams, especially the top tier teams that they're going to face when they go to the mid-season brawl, I don't know, these kinds of obvious draft tendencies tend to be really exploitable.
Yeah, that's exactly how what KSV did. Tist was picking Garrosh, of course. Ballistix even banning Garrosh oftentimes because of that. And I think you're right on point, as Ballistix is keeping their Tyrael Malfurion, trying to hide what their DPS is until the later phase. And after all those bans take away, you just go with the standard. Oftentimes Tracer, so Tracer is banned. Genji Hanzo is removed from Miracle. So what they're left, they do have Taikas, but they have to bring something else here as a DPS.
I guess they do have a couple of options considering it's Sky Temple. The map doesn't necessarily remove anything relevant from play. They could also go for the Falstad here, even though it's against a Genji. No longer that scary anymore compared to when Falstad was essentially removed from the meta due to Genji being so strong. And also, we need to touch on Ballistix' second ban here in Stukov, because I really think Ballistix is being intelligent in playing the numbers game here, because the two highest win rate heroes in which a meaningful sample size has been established for Miracle were Garrosh and Stukov. Those two heroes they have a positive win rate on, which is something incredible if you think about Miracle's overall win rate. So Ballistix really have done their research on this one, but Maiev, very interesting from Ballistix.
Yep. We were saying this all the time. My first pick is not the way to go for Korea. There are lots of counters. There are lots of great counters like the Medivh or Falstad even coming out a few times, who actually got a Q buff. And I've seen a lot of streamers, players actually streaming with the Falstad Q, Mage Falstad even. But here we have the pair, Junkrat, along with that Maiev Cage. Can be somewhat painful if you do not have the protection, but once Miracle... Maybe they're thinking Medivh in their own way, but it's going to be Falstad for the counter only. And the support will be Uther to finish up.
Overall, super standard comp from Miracle, generally what we expect from them really. Whereas the Maiev, Ballistix, if I recall correctly, is 0-2 on Maiev. They've never won on the hero. SD hasn't been particularly impressive on the hero. Whereas Miracle have a better grasp on Maiev, I think, overall as a team. They are 2-0 actually with Maiev. So I thought that Maiev would be a little bit more high contested in this draft overall, but Ballistix ends up being the team who takes the hero. And the last pick, considering that it's a Maiev Junkrat draft, I think they have so many options here, basically. They're not really locking themselves into a specific style of play.
If they want some balanced one, Dehaka, it's all up to Jungha now as a solo lane. Sonya's taken away.
I would love to see a random Zeratul right now.
I think he fits actually if you want to bring in that burst damage, but talking about burst damage, there's also a Smork in there. A Thrall is the last pick from Ballistix. Which side do you like more?
Like, aside from the general strengths of the teams, I would sort of say that Miracle has the easier draft and a very Occam's Razor-ish style of thinking about drafts is generally the easier draft is the better draft, right? Because there are less ways in which you can mess up your entire game plan. But I'm pretty excited to see Jungha playing Thrall again for the first time in a long time.
In a long time, and I think along with what you said right before, right when we started the draft, I think they really felt that maybe they had to have some hero changes from starting from the solo lane. Jungha bringing that Thrall, maybe it will work, but let's go into game one and see how it comes out. Miracle picking that Genji once again. And it seems like Gunza is on Falstad this time. A Sniper going back to that old Genji.
I guess Sniper really enjoys being on the Shimada heroes, so to speak.
Yeah, I read that PTR patch notes, and Genji's going to have some changes, actually. Somewhat of a buff, somewhat of a nerf.
I was somewhat confused because I thought the Observer would obviously switch to the Ballistix side of the map because I wanted to see who was playing whom. But turns out nothing too surprising. SD on the Maiev, Jungha on the Thrall. I think one of the biggest differences between KSB and Ballistix as a team when we go down to the individual players is that SD's inability or seeming inability to play Maiev on the level of the players on KSB who play Maiev, such as Rich, I think that's a very meaningful difference and one they will have to resolve before they head off to the mid-season brawl. So I really hope that SDE has practiced it a lot and will show some good moves on.
Yeah, this is certainly a change. SDE never really liked to play melee. It was always the backline, like the Junkrat, Tychus. Always having the ranged heroes instead.
Yeah, even before he came to Ballistix, when he was playing Assassins on Mighty, he was, really famous for his Li Ming. So, I don't know, it's pretty difficult to get into the mindset of playing such a very melee-centric hero, a true melee assassin.
Well, they're going against Miracle, and maybe they want to test something out. SJN gets trapped in that STE, and that's going to be the first blood. Maybe Gunza STE does commit and gets the drag. It's the bind, but he will be safe for now. But they want to. Usually, what we see from Ballistix after getting the camp, they like to push super hard, especially when they have the Ethereal Shield.
That rotation from Ballistix was really crisp in the way that generally when something like that happens this early on in the game, you would be inclined to call Miracle naive. But it happened so smoothly that it almost felt like this was the standard early game for both teams, like they were supposed to take that camp. And I don't know, it definitely is naivety on the side of Miracle, because if you recall, ETC wasn't properly checking the bush vision while they were doing the camps, so very elementary mistake that Ballistix capitalized pretty well on.
And Bagi actually got caught right after. I think Junkrat actually tossed Uther with the mine. That's why Uther was way up in front. Actually stunned Bagi, got himself trapped there, which was a weird one. We couldn't really see the entire screen, but I think that's what happened.
A fortuitous turn of events, certainly for Miracle, but it doesn't really make up for the fact that they lost their entire front wall of the bottom fort. So Miracle will really want to counter-leverage that here in the first temple phase.
As Sonya has been somewhat dominating the solo lane, even before Magi and Sniper came up to that top. Yes. Sonya Thrall matchup, it's a pretty tough one for both, but it really lands depending on how many skill shots you land, like the Ancient Spear or the Wolf. If you get the stun on it, that you can get the massive damage.
The Sonya Thrall matchup gives me like really warm feelings inside because it reminds me of 2016 summer, where we saw Thrall versus Sonya every game, every single game.
First pick or banned.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah, it was like at the height of the Shimada meta, right? Every team had to have either a Genji or Hanzo, but it was Sonya and Thrall. And unlike Genji and Hanzo, they had to lane against each other in the solo lane every game, which got repetitive, but it was really fun because it was such a skill matchup.
And I think we're seeing the same so far. Jungha has been losing somewhat, and that's why the rotation down is a little bit slower, I would say. SDE here, I would say that they're keeping the same play style, but having different heroes that he doesn't really have the range to poke because he's not playing the Junkrat, but they're keeping the same rotation even though they're playing different heroes.
I mean, like, as you somewhat alluded to, I think SD has never been that flexible of a player. He is a really, really good player on a large range of heroes, a wide range of heroes. The problem is that they're all flex assassins, flex range assassins. When he was tasked to play double support in the double support meta last fall, he wasn't particularly good at any one of them. And right now when he's playing Maiev, still has yet to show a sign of true mastery. So will this really hurt Ballistix in the long run? It's a bit early to say for sure, but it's something that we have to think about when gauging their strength against the top teams.
And right before 10, right before the second temple phase, Ballistix wants to push this one out a little bit, hoping for maybe an earlier level 10. It's not going to be just quite yet close, as Falstead was moving down for the rotation to check and to pressure Ballistix a little bit. And Jungha so far, oftentimes he's the one winning the top lane, but not in this case, not against H82 Sonya today.
Oh, and this could be meaningful, but they decide not to press the issue that
Was
much.
Gunza thinking that they were going to hit 10 at the moment, maybe?
There could have been a backwards gust. Yeah, it could have been possible. The timing was pretty close. If that was the intent, then a bit of a shame, really.
That was a very, can't call it lazy, but just looking for luck, I would say. Just digging into sands and looking for coins right there, as that flight was wasted. They were also having the rotation top just in case. If they get the kill, maybe push the fort from the top because they had late rotation going to the bottom temple. And because of that, Ballistix takes control, and they never lost that Thrall also.
Aside from that somewhat failed flight towards the top side of the map, Miracle has been largely super indecisive, although they have been playing it pretty well. This could be dangerous for Jungha.
Yeah, it's a damage. It's healing from Magi and the save.
coming in at the perfect time, uses all his skills to properly proc his passive. Overall, Miracle will be a bit of a smarting at that one. But I don't know. I felt like Ballistix could have pressed the second temple issue a bit harder because the bottom court on Miracle's side was really low and they were roughly on equal experience. So if they made a concerted push towards the bot side and destroyed that and got level 10 first, then they could have, you know, made a stronger play with the second temple. But Ballistix overall not really pressing the issue in any way or form.
So far, Miracle, in terms of rotations and how they're looking for solo kills even maybe, they have been chasing Ballistix in terms of experience and the rotation. Of course, they have 2 more forts down, but still they're not too behind. They can always catch up. And so far, Gonza's Falstad has been pretty impressive tonight.
Impressive in the sense that he's doing all the right things a Falstad should do, but I'm not sure if he's doing half of the things that he actually could be doing. Because if you see a Genji Falstad draft and the opposition doesn't have any globals to answer the pressure that those two heroes bring, then you would obviously sort of expect them to go ganking all these vulnerable solo lane heroes such as Thrall, such as Junkrat, but that hasn't been happening. Obviously, Jungha has been pretty smart about not overextending in the top lane. That is a part of why he lost top lane in the early game so hard. But even taking that into account, I think Miracle definitely had the right to be super aggressive with this draft, but that simply has not been happening. And now Ballistix is more than half a level up, and I think it's not too outlandish to argue that going into the late game, into the 5v5 team fights, Ballistix will be feeling better than they were in the early game.
Well, we'll have to see, as Gonzalo and Falstad sometimes threw big time at the last possible moment after 20 minutes I'm talking about. So far, compared to how he has been playing, is a lot better, I would say.
A lot of expectations for Gunza because he used to be a pro gamer in another game and he wasn't that bad at all.
And this time maybe they can catch Jungha, but perfect route there to change it up, and he's gonna keep on activating his trait. Maybe H82 looking for some luck here as Jungha's back to full health already. Again rooted. Hooligan dives in with the Holy Ground, but it will be on to chase. Falstad nowhere nearby to help them.
Judy could have been in a really, really bad spot right there, but the route misses, thankfully for him.
The Holy Ground onto H82. There's a body block. Even has to use the D-shield, and that's on a long cooldown now.
Overall, I think the last engage was a win for Miracle, though, because they got so much experience out of the Falstad's top push. Divine Shield being wasted, well, being blown, not really wasted, is a bit of a shame, but it's not as if there were an active temple phase going on, right? There were only like 7 shots left in the bottom temple. So overall, Miracle made a really good half engage there, then pulled out at the right time, I would say.
Yeah, Falstad had a great split silk on top. They didn't lose any member, having to spend Divine Shield for that chase, so not too much tools left. And they still have a gust to disengage, so I would say they still have a great chance of just running behind, because Ballistix, they will love to chase. And Judy once again the target here, has rooted again with the entangling root this time. Umbrobind not really connecting. The face melt, there's a power slide from Judy going in, disengaging the 2 others, not making sure that the cage does not pop along with the Riptire, but the target now is H82 as he's alone, isolated, trying to survive with the Whirlwind, but he is lost. Actually, spears out!
That was so well played by H82. I cannot believe. We thought he was gone.
I thought he was gone, for sure. I'm pretty sure Ballistix also thought he was gone.
Well, overall then, I guess this is yet another win for Miracle. Judy playing with fire there. Narrowly missing the roots by the skin of his. Do you call a cow's skin a cowhide? I wasn't raised in America, okay, so I'm not really
It's
into
the
these.
it's the Texan
technicalities.
ETC. Okay.
Texan ETC.
It's the country ETC. It's the countryside.
I guess we call it a hide then.
With that, Ballistix pushing in. Because they spotted Sonya bottom lane, they have so much time right now, along with Tyrael Shield, to push all the way. They're not really making the crazy wombo combo that they are willing to spend. They have the Cage, they have the Sunder, and the Riptire. But nothing really pairing up perfectly, so not yet, I would say.
It's been 13 minutes in this game, and we've only seen 2 kills.
2 kills, yes.
Yet there had been a lot of engages, so this hasn't been exactly a passive game.
Sniper is pulled from the vine, but not much of a pair up as his SD is looking possibly to go in along with the Holy Ground. Trying to engage, Holy Ground taking some damage with the shield. So much better of a sustain with the Malfurion on the back for Ballistix. Judy looking for that ankle. Jungha takes the damage. There's a Riptire, great disengage, and Jungha seems to be going that, but there's the Sanctification. They're on the Cage. They're doing the damage, but where's the follow-up damage for the kill? Sniper escapes. Judy's trying to delay with the mosh pit. That's going to be the first kill. H82 on to Chase. Gunza, the second one to go down, and the third, and the fourth will be H82, but he's looking to turn this around, but that's only for a good luck. I guess Uther. Too bad, Light. I thought Light was supposed to save everyone.
That was such a great sanctification from Hooligan coming out to save Jungha in the nick of time. If you remember, at the start of the fight when Jungha was getting super chunked down, he was at like dying HP, but after the sanctification, within the sanctification, he had enough time for another rotation of his spells, proc this passive enough times, emerged out of the sanctification at full HP, and from then on, it was just cleanup from Ballistix. I was somewhat disappointed at Miracle's strategy, or tactics rather, going into that particular team fight, because it was so obvious, even from a third-person, like the third-person point of view, that Miracle was super reliant on Judy landing a critical slide or a critical mosh pit. And that simply wasn't going to happen because it was so telegraphed. So Ballistix gave maximal respect to Judy's positioning. And I really think that Gunza or Sniper should have been more proactive in opening up the fight, because sometimes the tank is usually expected to create the space for other players on his or her team. But when the tank is the only threat that your team is posing to the opposition team, then sometimes your assassins need to, you know, move in a bit more aggressively to make space for the slide. And I really think that Miracle, this has been a chronic problem for that team, hasn't it? Because all of their players are rather passive, except for Judy. And Judy really shines when he has a dive buddy. The problem is that he has no dive buddies on this team.
Yeah, oftentimes very passive. I would also agree on that statement. And I think Ballistix knew that the longer they're also looking for that big cage, the Riptire, even if it doesn't combo up to get multiple kills. They have the sustain. Their sustain is so much better than solo Uther from Miracle. Once they know that the deflect is out, the gust is out, even the G shield was not really for the safety, and Uther just went out alone from that team fight. Now Ballistix hit 20. Expanding on the H82, has an amazing escape once again. But this keep is very damaged. Now trying to just finish it up with the coming temple very soon.
They don't have the right to contest any of the temples because it's 20 versus 18. Yet there are 2 temples. This spells almost near certain doom for Miracle, unless Gunza finally decides to make a decisive play. Will it happen?
Falstad is the bottom temple. Junkrat is actually going bot to clear and maybe even contest.
This is going to be an easy 2 keeps. Was it the right decision?
I think ever since that team fight loss, I think they had less of a chance to actually come back into this game right now. They can't really decide what exactly they should be doing. As Jungha just bolts in with that root, and Judy's getting chunked. Face melt connects, but the holy ground, it has to got the D shield out onto Judy, which means that no one's safe right after this.
A very respectable Divine Shield saves Judy, but at what cost? At the cost of Uther's life.
Light abundance, no one but myself.
That was the lie.
Yes.
That was the cat.
Well, that's a support you sometimes have to sacrifice for your team. Feels bad, but
Really feels bad for Miracle. Still not level 23, keeps down. And rarely have we seen a team come back from this kind of deficit. The only real comeback from this kind of situation that I can remember is when last summer Tempest threw a 3-keep lead against Raven, if you will remember.
on this map, I think.
Yeah, it was exactly 1 year ago, because I remember it was the very last week of the season that time as well. So unless something like that happens, I'm not so sure, but at that time, if I'm remembering correctly, Raven was playing Nazebo back when he was super strong, whereas Miracle's composition right now cannot be said to be a late game team fight composition, so even less hope for Miracle in this case.
Well, 3 keeps down, but they're waiting for that level 20, and they hit. And Judy make a wonderful 5-man, 4-man mosh pit as HGC is doing contesting against Jungha. Sniper dives into a wrong target, I would actually say. Gets more damage in the trade.
All of Ballistix are full, but Miracle are getting chunked out, including their core. Their core is getting chunked as well.
Yep, Junkrat has been poking somewhat. 76%. The next sample phase may just be game if Miracle cannot really chase onto any target right now.
I honestly feel like Gunza should have taken Wind Tunnel and tried to make a genius play. But, oh well.
But Big Mount, at least you'll be getting 1 out of the 2 temples that's going to happen, but it will be direct shots to the core.
I mean, can they even last until the next temple phase? I'm not exactly sure. They can just posture around this boss area.
Ballistix not really... They have so much more options. They don't have to risk anything. They have all keeps up. If Miracle wants to do the boss, there will be the temple, double temples.
Ballistix are playing this in such a textbook manner, as they have all season, basically. They never go super aggressive in the late game against teams they are favored against, because they really value that kind of consistency. They don't want to push.
Well, Miracle gets the watchtower, but I don't think that's the objective that you want to go for as the core is going down. ST is delaying. There's the mosh pit onto Maiev, but no damage follow-up, and that will be the end of the game with the tempo shots from the mid. I would say this game was a very good tutorial for you guys if you want to learn about the rotation on this map especially. Macro 101 Sky Temple.
Overall, from Ballistix, a textbook performance, we would say. And we were sort of looking forward to Ballistix showing that they have finally understood how to play with and around Maiev. I don't think that they have really shown that, but it's not their fault, right? There were so few true engages that were led by Maiev. So overall, this game essentially was a demonstration of Ballistix' overall superiority as a team, particularly in their ability to understand the power spikes of each team's compositions and plan out their macro accordingly. So a bit of an anticlimactic ending there at the end. Not too impressed at Gunza's passiveness on the Falstad, but overall, Miracle shouldn't be feeling too down. It's not like they made any crucial mistakes or amateurish engages. They were just too passive until the very end.
20-minute game, and not that Miracle... There were not too many team fights because of the sustain, most likely from Ballistix was just absolutely insane with Magi being on Mafia, and they had Tyrael, had so much shield along with the healing coming out from the back line. And compared to that Miracle, they only they were relying too much on Uther alone. And in a long run, long fight, you can't really sustain the team. And I think Ballistic, with that knowledge, just had the team fight going along, really not contesting in the tempo. And they knew that once in a while that after 20 seconds, 30 seconds, they will be just winning in that HP war.
Right, as you said, like in a war of attrition, it's basically Genji Uther versus Junkrat Malfurion. We all know which side is going to emerge stronger after 10 seconds without a proper engage. And I think one of the main criticisms that we all have against Ballistix is that they really only play around 3 supports, right? Because Magi has notoriously stuck to the triumvirate right now of Malfurion, Rehgar, and Uther,
Yes.
and almost always loses or performs poorly on everything else. But when they're playing within those 3 supports, and when they're facing one of those 3 supports, I think their understanding of how these support matchups work out and how they should approach team fights, it's really impeccable.
That's all because he didn't play Lily yet. It's coming.
Yes.
Really, she's coming sometime.
It will.
When?
It will, like, back when Illidan is back in the meta again. I really miss Illidan. We were so lucky last year. We saw so much Illidan in both phases, but
not too many
not this
Lilies
year.
though. Maybe a few in EU and NA, but never in Korea this year. I miss a Lily.
Lily is the best support. You heard it from me.
Well, the only support to get buffed when every other support was nerfed.